She called me just a friend to her family. I called her my ex to mine. You know, there are moments in life when you realize that the person you love doesn't actually respect you, and that hurts more than just a breakup. It's like being stabbed in the back by someone you trusted more than anyone else in the world. My name is David. I'm 32 years old, and I want to tell you about how I learned that 7 months of my life were wasted on someone who was ashamed of me. We met in October last year. Sarah worked at a marketing agency, and I was a systems administrator at an IT company. We met at a mutual friend's corporate party. I remember how she stood by the window with a glass of wine in her hand, looking out at the night city and quietly humming something. At that moment, she seemed special, different. I approached her, started talking. Turns out we had a lot in common. She was smart, funny, had this way of tilting her head when she was thinking that I found absolutely adorable. We talked until 3 in the morning about everything and nothing. Our jobs, our dreams, terrible movies we secretly loved, places we wanted to travel. The connection felt immediate, electric. You know that feeling when you meet someone and it's like the universe just clicks into place? That's what it was like with Sarah. We started dating officially 2 weeks later. The first few months were incredible. She'd stay over at my apartment most weekends. We'd cook together. She made this amazing pasta with mushrooms that filled my entire kitchen with the smell of garlic and thyme. We'd watch Netflix until we fell asleep on the couch, and I'd wake up with her head on my chest, her hair tickling my chin. She met my friends first, came to game nights, laughed at our inside jokes, even learned to play our ridiculous card games. My buddy Mike pulled me aside one evening and said, "Dude, she's a keeper. Don't screw this up." I was already planning not to, but looking back now, there were signs. Red flags I chose to ignore because I was so caught up in how she made me feel. The first one happened about 3 months in. We were walking downtown, and she ran into her coworker, Jessica, I think her name was. They chatted for a few minutes, and when Jessica asked who I was, Sarah just said, "Oh, this is David. Not my boyfriend David or David, the guy I'm seeing. Just David." Like I was some random person she happened to be walking with. I brushed it off. Maybe she wasn't comfortable with labels yet. Maybe she was private about her personal life at work. I made excuses for her because I was falling in love. The second red flag came at a restaurant. We'd been dating for 4 months by then, and I thought we were solid. The waiter asked if we were celebrating anything special. It was our 4-month anniversary, which I'd mentioned to her earlier. She quickly said, "Oh no, we're just friends having dinner." The waiter smiled and walked away, but I felt like I'd been slapped. When I brought it up later, she laughed it off. "I don't like sharing our business with strangers," she said, touching my hand across the table. Her fingers were warm, and she had this way of looking at me that made my brain go fuzzy. So I let it go. Again. The third incident should have been the final straw. We were at a coffee shop near her work, and her boss walked in. Sarah immediately moved her chair further from mine, stopped holding my hand, and when her boss came over to say hello, she introduced me as a friend from college. Not even a recent friend, a friend from college. Like our relationship was something from the distant past that barely mattered. But by then, I was in deep. I'd fallen completely for this woman who could make me laugh until my sides hurt, who remembered that I liked my coffee with 2 sugars and no cream, who'd text me good morning every single day without fail. I convinced myself that she was just cautious, that she needed time to feel comfortable being public about us. I was an idiot. The breaking point came in May. Sarah had been talking about her family for months. Her parents, her younger sister Emma, her grandmother who lived with them. She was close with them, called her mom every few days, sent pictures of our dates to her sister. Or so I thought. One evening, she was unusually excited. "My parents want to meet you," she said, bouncing on her toes in my kitchen. The smell of the dinner we'd just finished, grilled chicken and vegetables, still hung in the air mixing with her perfume, something light and floral that I'd grown to associate with comfort and home. "They're having a family dinner on Sunday, and they specifically asked me to invite you. They've been curious about who I've been spending so much time with." My heart soared. Finally, I thought. Finally, she's ready to make this official, to let her family know that I'm not just some random guy in her life. I spent the entire week preparing. I bought a nice bottle of wine, a Pinot Noir I'd researched carefully, making sure it would pair well with whatever they might serve. I got a haircut, bought a new shirt, even practiced conversations in my head. What would I say to her father? How would I make a good impression on her mother? Sunday arrived, and I was nervous as hell. Sarah picked me out outside my apartment building. She looked beautiful, she always did, wearing this blue dress that brought out her eyes. But there was something different about her energy. She seemed tense, distracted. "You okay?" I asked as we drove to her parents' house. "Yeah, just family dinners, always a bit stressful." She gave me a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Her family lived in a beautiful suburban home with a manicured lawn and flower boxes under every window. The kind of place that screamed stability and tradition. I could smell something delicious wafting from the house. Roasted meat and herbs that made my stomach growl despite my nerves. Sarah's mother, Carol, answered the door. She was an older version of Sarah with the same warm smile and expressive eyes. "You must be David," she said, giving me a hug that immediately put me at ease. "Sarah has told us so much about you." Her father, Robert, was more reserved but friendly. Her sister Emma was there with her boyfriend, Tom, and grandmother Rose was a tiny woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper wit. The house smelled like Sunday dinner, pot roast and fresh bread, and something cinnamon sweet baking in the oven. We sat down to eat, and for the first hour, everything was perfect. The conversation flowed easily. Robert asked about my work, Carol wanted to know about my family, Emma teased Sarah about something from their childhood. I was starting to relax, thinking that maybe this was it. Maybe this was the moment our relationship became real in everyone's eyes. Then Emma asked the question that changed everything. "So, David, how long have you and Sarah been dating?" The question hung in the air like smoke. I looked at Sarah, expecting her to answer, to claim our 7 months together with pride. Instead, she laughed, this awkward, high-pitched laugh that I'd never heard from her before. "Oh, we're not dating," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "David's just a friend, a really good friend." The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt the color drain from my face, felt my chest tighten like someone was squeezing my heart in a vice. Just a friend. After 7 months of dates, of intimate conversations, of nights spent wrapped in each other's arms, of me falling completely and utterly in love with her, I was just a friend. The table went quiet. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, could sense the confusion in the air. Carol looked between Sarah and me, clearly picking up on the tension. Emma's boyfriend Tom cleared his throat awkwardly. Even grandmother Rose, who'd been chatty all evening, suddenly found her pot roast very interesting. I looked at Sarah, hoping to see some sign that she was joking, that this was some kind of misunderstanding. But she wouldn't meet my eyes. She was staring at her plate, cutting her meat into smaller and smaller pieces, her cheeks flushed red. "Just a friend," I repeated quietly, more to myself than to anyone else. "David and I have been hanging out a lot lately," Sarah continued, still not looking at me. "He's been really supportive during some tough times at work. It's nice to have someone to talk to." Supportive during tough times at work. Someone to talk to. 7 months reduced to casual friendship and emotional support. I felt sick. I somehow made it through the rest of dinner. I participated in conversations about the weather, about Emma's job, about Grandmother Rose's stories from her youth. I complimented the food, thanked Carol for having me, made polite small talk like the well-trained adult I was. But inside, I was dying. Every time Sarah laughed at something her father said, every time she touched her mother's arm affectionately, every time she acted completely normal while I sat there feeling like a fool, it was like another knife in my chest. The worst part was how her family treated me after her announcement. They were still polite, still kind, but there was a difference. Robert stopped asking about my long-term plans. Carol stopped mentioning how nice it was that Sarah had found someone special. Emma's boyfriend Tom started talking to me about guy stuff like we were just two single dudes hanging out. They were good people, and they adjusted their expectations accordingly. I was just Sarah's friend David now, nothing more. After dinner, as we were saying our goodbyes, Carol hugged me again. "It was so nice to meet you, David," she said warmly. "Any friend of Sarah's is always welcome here." Friend. There was that word again. The drive back to my apartment was the longest 20 minutes of my life. Sarah tried to make conversation, asking if I'd enjoyed the dinner, mentioning how much her grandmother had liked me, chattering about her sister's new job. I responded in monosyllables, staring out the window at the passing streetlights. Finally, she asked, "Are you okay? You've been quiet." I turned to look at her. Really look at her. This woman I'd been in love with for 7 months, who I'd imagined a future with, who I'd started to think might be the one. "Just a friend," I said. She had the decency to look uncomfortable. "David, I can explain—" "No," I said calmly. "You don't need to explain. I understand perfectly." And I did. I understood that she was ashamed of me. Maybe I wasn't successful enough for her family's expectations. Maybe I wasn't handsome enough or charming enough, or whatever enough. Maybe she was keeping her options open, using me as a placeholder until someone better came along. It didn't matter why. What mattered was that after 7 months, she still didn't see me as someone worth claiming publicly. She dropped me off at my building, and I could see her wanting to say something, to fix this somehow. But what was there to fix? She'd shown me exactly where I stood in her life, and it wasn't where I thought I was. "I'll call you tomorrow," she said as I got out of the car. "Sure," I replied, knowing she wouldn't, and knowing I wouldn't answer if she did. I went upstairs to my apartment, the same apartment where she'd spent countless nights, where we'd cooked together and watched movies and made love and talked about our dreams. It smelled like her perfume. Her toothbrush was still in my bathroom, her favorite coffee mug still in my kitchen cabinet. I sat on my couch, our couch, really, since she'd helped me pick it out, and I made a decision. I was done. Done being someone's secret. Done being convenient. Done being just a friend to someone I loved. The next few days were difficult. Sarah did call, actually, multiple times. She sent texts asking if we could talk, saying she wanted to explain everything. I didn't respond. What was there to say? She'd been perfectly clear at her family's dinner table. My friends noticed the change. Mike asked where Sarah had been, why she hadn't come to game night. I told him we'd broken up. He asked what happened, and I just said it wasn't working out. I didn't have the energy to explain the whole pathetic story. The real test came the following weekend. My parents were in town visiting. They live about 3 hours away and only come to the city a few times a year. I'd planned to introduce them to Sarah, had been looking forward to it for weeks. They were staying at a hotel downtown, and we'd arranged to meet for brunch at this nice place they'd found online. As I was getting ready to leave my apartment, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Please, can we just talk? I miss you." I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. At brunch, my parents were excited to finally meet the woman I'd been talking about for months. My mom had even brought a small gift, a scarf she'd knitted herself in Sarah's favorite color, which I'd mentioned during our weekly phone calls. Where is she? My dad asked, looking around the restaurant. Is she running late? I took a sip of my coffee, gathering my courage. This was it. This was my moment to reclaim some dignity, to stop being the guy who got hidden away like a shameful secret. Actually, she's not coming, I said. My ex couldn't make it. The words felt strange in my mouth. My ex. It was the first time I'd said them out loud, the first time I'd acknowledged that whatever Sarah and I had was over. My parents exchanged a glance. My mom's face fell slightly. She'd been looking forward to meeting Sarah, had been excited about the possibility of grandchildren in the not-too-distant future. Oh, my mom said carefully. I'm sorry to hear that, honey. When did you two break up? Recently, I said. It just wasn't working out. My dad? Never one for emotional conversations, just nodded and changed the subject to work, asking about a project I'd mentioned. But my mom kept looking at me with those concerned mother eyes that see everything. Later, as we were walking to their hotel, she took my arm. Are you okay? She asked quietly. I will be, I said, and for the first time in days, I actually believed it. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Within an hour of my parents leaving town, my phone was ringing. Sarah had somehow found out, probably through our mutual friend, that I'd referred to her as my ex. How could you? She said when I finally answered. Her voice was shaking with anger. How could you tell people we broke up when we never even had that conversation? I almost laughed. The audacity was breathtaking. What conversation did we need to have, Sarah? You made it pretty clear where we stood when you called me just a friend in front of your entire family. That's different. That was complicated. Family dynamics are complicated. You don't understand? You're right, I interrupted. I don't understand. I don't understand how someone you've been dating for 7 months is just a friend. I don't understand how someone who stays at your apartment 3 nights a week is just someone you talk to about work. I don't understand any of it. There was silence on the other end of the line. David, please, can we meet? Can we talk about this in person? No, I said simply. We're done, Sarah. We were done the moment you introduced me as just a friend. I just made it official. She started crying then. Real tears, not the manipulative kind. And despite everything, it broke my heart a little. I had loved her. I had really, truly loved her. I was scared, she whispered. My family has expectations. They're traditional. I thought if I introduced you as my boyfriend right away, there would be pressure, questions about marriage and the future, and I wasn't ready for that. I thought if I eased them into it. 7 months, Sarah, 7 months of easing them into it while I fell completely in love with you. She was quiet for a long moment. You love me? Past tense, I thought. Loved. But I didn't correct her. It doesn't matter now, I said. It matters to me. Then you should have thought about that before you made me feel like something you were ashamed of. The conversation ended there. She tried calling back a few times, but I didn't answer. What was the point? Some things, once broken, can't be fixed. I ran into her a few weeks later at a coffee shop near her office. She looked tired, older somehow. She tried to approach me, but I just nodded politely and left. There was nothing left to say. My friends eventually got the whole story out of me during a particularly drunken game night. Mike was furious on my behalf. She's an idiot, he said. You dodged a bullet, man. Maybe he was right. Maybe I did dodge a bullet. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like loss. It's been 3 months now since that family dinner. 3 months since I learned that love isn't always enough if there's no respect to go with it. I'm doing better. Dating again, actually. There's this woman, Jennifer, who works at the bookstore near my apartment. She's sweet and funny, and when her coworker asked who I was last week, she said, "This is David, my boyfriend." Without hesitation. It's a small thing being claimed publicly, But after Sarah, it feels like everything. I still think about her sometimes. Wonder if she ever told her family the truth about what we were. Wonder if she learned anything from losing someone who genuinely loved her. But mostly, I'm grateful. Grateful that I found out who she really was before I wasted any more time. Grateful that I had enough self-respect left to walk away. Because here's what I've learned. You can't love someone into respecting you. You can't care for someone into being proud of you. And you sure as hell can't be just a friend to someone you're in love with without losing yourself in the process. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to stop being convenient for someone who won't fight for you. Sarah taught me that. And maybe in the end, that lesson was worth the heartbreak. Long pause. Thanks for listening. I know it's not the happiest story, but sometimes you need to tell these things, you know? Sometimes you need to say it out loud to really let it go. And if there's anyone out there going through something similar, just remember, you deserve to be someone's first choice, not their backup plan. You deserve to be claimed, not hidden. You deserve better than being just a friend to someone who's supposed to love you. Don't settle for less. I did. And I wasted 7 months of my life on someone who was never going to choose me the way I chose her. Choose yourself instead. Trust me, it's worth it.